Here, and I couldn't do it. Unfortunately, a couple weeks ago, I got that answer. 4 black trans women murdered in the first 2 weeks of Pride Month. Let that set in.
That ain't right.
Absolutely not right. We started planning this 2 months ago, so we thought there was plenty of reason to do this before that tragedy. Yeah, we're here to affirm trans rights. We need to understand this is an intersectional fight. That right there shows us that racism and sexism and other forms of discrimination are part of our fight. We need to understand that classism and capitalism and fascism and all forms of discrimination are part of this message. You fight for everyone, or you fight for no one. I've got another name for you to hold space for. It's the person that taught me that. Dan Haywood, good friend of mine, trans person. Yeah. Advocate, activist, taught me not only you have to fight for everyone, or you fight for no one. An activist job is never done, and we can't keep quiet. They taught me so much, and they survived their battle with cancer until a few weeks ago. And I want to hold space for that person. And we know that they learned it from somewhere, and they learned it from somewhere. And we're here to honor the fact that where that came from is 50 years ago at Stonewall, where queer people, and the first one were trans women of color and trans men of color, to stand up, speak up, and fight back against the things that were trying to murder them. That is why we're here today. I want you to look at my feet. Everyone gaze upon my feet. Look past this plastic step that I'm on. What you will see, what I'm really standing on, are the shoulders of Martha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera and our other leaders. The work that is done has literally lifted me up, lifted up our voices. Now I want you to take your gaze from my feet and move it to my shoulders. Look at these shoulders. If you are queer or trans and you are under the age of 25, your feet will hear everything that I do and the queer people of my generation. What our purpose is here is to give you a taller, bigger, louder platform for the work you do. Woo! Whatever you do, activist, poet, politician, family, whatever your voice is, it is my job to lift you up. And that's how we do this. We stand on the shoulders of giants, and we create our own mountains of freedom and liberty, and we topple the mountains of hatred and oppression. And that is why we are here, and that is why we march. And let's begin the first ever Kansas City Trans Pride March!
You are beautiful. You are beautiful. I am beautiful. Thank y'all for coming out today. You're beautiful.
Reporter Samantha Owen. The cheers will roll down our spine. I need the cheers. It's amazing, amazing, amazing group. Give yourself a round of applause. We're we're not going anywhere. We're visiting. Today is the day for us. I can't say no more how proud it is to see everybody out here and the continued growth that we build. As a Black trans woman of color, it is amazing to see all of us, no matter what our color or creed or nationality is, we're standing in unison together. This is amazing. Kansas City, give yourselves a round of applause. This is amazing. Before I pass the mic, I want to say keep doing things for all folks of all nationalities within the trans spectrum. Would you say in Brooklyn to my sisters who have been slain this year, or the 10 girls, you have said it before, I will continue to say their names, and I ask you right now with me today to continue to say their names again. Dana Martin.
Dan Martin.
Giselle Ware.
Giselle Ware.
Ashanti Cameron.
Ashanti Cameron.
Claire Legault. Let's go. Malaysia Booker.
Malaysia Booker.
Michelle Tamika Washington.
Michelle Tamika Washington.
Paris Cameron.
Paris Cameron.
China Lindsay.
China Lindsay.
Chanel Sarlock.
Chanel Sarlock.
Zoe Spears.
Zoe Spears.
Joa Medina.
Joe Medina.
Leyland Pelasco.
Lynn Velasco.
We will continue to say their names, always say their names, not just on TBR, not just on Disability Day, but all year long. Let's be in the move of Trans March all year long, 365 of the year.
Talk about a little bit about the intersection of disability and being trans, and how trans pride and disability pride go hand in hand for me. But it's still a complicated issue because I'm going to do a little quote here real quick from Maria R. Palacio. As disabled people, every moment we're alive is an act of rebellion, an act of survival. If it were up to society, we'd all be gone, extinguished, eliminated, sent to die somewhere away from people's conscience. The non-disabled world wants us to believe that we must be worth more dead than alive. They want us to think that life as a disabled person is not worth living. They want us to grieve being alive, dig our own graves while we're still breathing, so they can later say we were the ones who wanted to die. So, for me, I stand being proud despite what the non-disabled want, for they want us to be in attics or in basements or in graves. And I stand that we, by being here and being loud, we say no. We are happy to be alive, and we are here, and we're not going to let anyone take that away from us.
Well, you know, on my list of things to do today, I had, affirm trans rights and shut down Westport for a couple hours. I'm not allowed in Westport. So I guess you're just gonna have to keep affirming some trans rights. Korea, Pat, thank you so much. Your messages, your inspiration, we appreciate you. Thank you.
White supremacy, got to go! Hey! White supremacy, got to go! Yay, baby trans!
Well, that was like 7 years ago, so we've come a long way since then. If you've seen me speak before, I usually lead with grandiose calls to action, but today I'm going to share something a lot more intimate and a lot more special. I want to share my exploration of identity. My name is Anderson. I am transgender, genderqueer, and for the past several years, I've grappled with the idea of being intersex. When I was 14 years old, my doctors were concerned. You see, I've always had this body, and it's always been small. I've always been scrawny. And the doctors were very worried that I wasn't growing in to be the kind of woman they expected me to be. I wasn't properly developing in the way they wanted, and so they ran a blood test. It turns out my chromosomes are funny. I don't have the perfect XXs that the proper woman would have. They said I was underdeveloped and not quite woman enough, and my parents should be really worried. She recommended hormones, a special type of human growth hormone to be injected into my bones, into the blood marrow, over a long series of shots, and they described it as being really painful. But they wanted to ensure the feminization that I needed at such a young age. I was 14 years old.
That ain't right. That ain't right.
I knew I didn't have the body that Vogue magazine said I should have, and now all of a sudden, the doctor in front of me seems to agree. I wanted to fit in. I was 14 years old. I wanted to be sexy. I wanted to get the boys and maybe the girls. I don't know. I was figuring that out. But after several visits, my parents were really hesitant. The hormones were costly and really invasive, and more the doctor was getting pushier and pushier. In fact, she eventually came out to say that she put her own daughter on these feminization hormones just to ensure that she grew into the body that was supposed to be proper.
Wow, that's funny.
I didn't want these painful injections. I just wanted to be me, but I was really confused and I didn't know what me I should be. But luckily my parents listened and didn't break under the pressure of the doctor. So I didn't go on those hormones. I didn't hear the word intersex for 4 more years until I was in college. By then I had found my own identity as come out as a trans man alongside Faith and finding the community in what is the Center for Inclusion. It used to be the Like Me Like House. And I had begun hormones myself, but this time testosterone of my own accord. It goes into the muscle, not deep into the blood marrow. But I was in college and I met a professor where I described my chromosome anomaly to. And he took me to a friend of his, a geneticist, to ask questions. And that geneticist looked me up and down. He saw me there as a trans man on hormones of my own accord and gleamed with fascination. Using some big, fancy words I didn't understand, and honestly I don't really remember, he told me I was a form of intersex. And at the time, I took the information mostly in silence. I told some family and some of my closest friends, but I kept it in my back pocket. It wasn't until this year, this March, that I actually publicly said the word intersex or told any of this story. This is the first time I've told this to a group of people. But I realized that fear in being out and an activist and trans, but not being out in these terms, it was because of my own phobias, right? I didn't want to be seen as the hermaphroditic myth that perpetrates all of these things of intersex. And I just wanted to have the body that I have. It was on Trans Day of Visibility that I made a public status. It felt honest and powerful, but honestly still, when I was writing the speech last night, I don't know where the truth lies. Does one man with a degree and some textbook knowledge hold the authority to call me intersex in my 20s? Does a single doctor aiding the birth of a baby hold the authority to change that child's life forever with surgeries and hormones? No. Does a tiny disruption in my chromosomes, a tiny little leg, really separate me from society so much? Probably no, but honestly, I don't know the answer because these answers don't exist in the framework handed to us. For years, I've tried to research and find the answer. Am I really intersex, or am I intersex enough? How do I exist? What I find are websites with short lists of conditions and long words, but mostly lengthy books about how Western views on sex are a pure myth. There are not 2 types of bodies. Nature doesn't work like that. Nature is beautiful and expansive with infinite expressions of hormones and chromosomes, voices and chest, body hair and muscle and more.
Yeah,
and
that's
hard,
right.
And hard as they try, these doctors, they can't fit us into the boxes. Because the closer you look, the less it makes sense. So on this 50th anniversary of Stonewall, I want to celebrate. Because for the first time in our modern Western history, it feels like we've reached a special place. For decades, we've fought to exist, fought for hormones and the ability to pass. But honestly, for me, being genderqueer and I guess now intersex, that passing is part of oppression for me. The forces of, yeah. For those that are gender non-conforming, genderqueer, all of us, the forces of society, they might have let me go from a woman to a man, but now every day I go to work and they just try and force me to play this role of a man that I am not. And that's not right. But for the first time as we stand here today, 50 years from Stonewall, we're able to wave those genderqueer flags. We're able to use alternative pronouns. We're changing language. We're changing all of society with our even just our existence. And that is amazing. So I say, as we look on to the next 50 years, I hope we can expand that same vision onto sex, to end the stigmas which keep intersex people in the closet, that force surgeries, invasive treatments on infants, and to end all treatment on individuals without consent. We need to end these boxes that we place in people. We're starting to do that with gender, but even with sex itself. There are infinite ways that our bodies form. And what? Because I'm small and scrawny? At 14 years old, I need to go under painful treatment just to be a woman?
Hell no!
My doctor did not know what was in store for me either. Today.